Hi everyone, MJ here from Nerdy Dads, and I'm here with David today. And now, if we're not busy doing tech stuff or we're doing data stuff at work, and with Fabric Developer, we're also using this medium to talk about things that are somehow personal, but not too personal. And in this particular topic, we want to talk about a bit of a really ambiguous topic, which is around moral skills, ethics, empathy, resilience, community engagement for children. And again, the reason why we're doing this is that we have children. I have two boys. Dave has two boys as well. And yeah, we always want to brainstorm ideas as well on on about certain topics. And in this particular one, we want to talk about moral skills, which I think is very crucial. And to give other people context as well, I wasn't born in Australia where I live right now. I was born in the Philippines, and the upbringing of my kids, obviously coming from a different place, is going to be a bit different as well. So I guess let's start off with that, Dave. Like, what are your stance around that concept of like a home country moving to a different country, and now you have you have to navigate your way towards that landscape. Yeah.
Yeah, good question. It's challenging actually, because of the lack of support more than anything else. It's a new country. We have limited friends in Sydney. Like Sydney is not a huge place, but it's not small as well. Once you kind of scattered, like separated a little bit with your friends, when your kids are not going to the same school anymore, it's actually hard to kind of stay close with the friends because we're just so busy. Uh, and yeah, it's the part of the challenge is just we've got two boys. We kind of they go to a private school. So where we live, we actually don't have too many like their friends living in the local area as well. So yeah, and we have to learn everything. Like I was raised in a completely different way to how my kids needs to be raised. It's
Yeah.
a different world. And so yeah, there's a whole bunch of challenges, and I think the lack of guidance has been a challenge, but I think it's also good in a sense that we have to figure things out ourselves. So that force us to think like what works best for the kids. And we have to constantly ask that question a lot. And I would imagine that in a like a more social thing, we don't have to think as hard on those questions. They just go with their friends and do whatever their friends will be doing. Whereas for us, we need to kind of pick and choose and start to ask more questions. But yeah, it's definitely challenging.
Exactly. And then there are also some of those traditions, cultural aspect that um is maybe there's a subsection of that here where we live, but it's not like it's the default, like I'll just quickly share, right? Like in the Philippines there's a yearly fiesta that's being celebrated in a specific town, and then it's something you anticipate every year, right? Like October 7 is the feast day of my town, and like we're excited, and like that's kind of like something to look forward to. This time around, you kind of like have to navigate your way in, right? Like, oh, there's the summer break, and there's the school holidays here and there, and then you know what I mean. Like you have to formulate that
Yeah, yeah.
thing on your own. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, a festival with Chinese New Year coming up, or Lunar New Year, to be politically correct, with that coming up, it's quite interesting because we don't celebrate Christmas traditionally, and so with Chinese New Year, it's celebrated here, but it's not to the same degree
Yeah.
as you would do back in China or other Asian countries. So there's kind of maybe lack of festive feelings. And that's probably, part of the culture, part of change. So that's definitely, yeah.
Yeah, and so that's why, going back to the topic about moral skills, right? Like we're learning, you and I, we're learning, and we also have to teach at the same time to our children, right? So that's why there's double the effort, there's double the amount of work that we have to do as part of this journey. Well, what are some of those key principles do you think you would really want to import, right? Again, just purely on the perspective of the positive side of like what are those positive traits or moral compass, if you want to call it, that you want to impart to your kids.
Yeah, there's like, we are social animals, and what makes us truly happy is probably when we spend time with our friends, with close family, um, and but to do that, there are things around, how to do the right thing to your friends, right? How to, um, do the right thing for the community. I was having a chat with Martin just very recently regarding to there will be some new kids because year five is a big intake year for the school, and there will be some new kids, and so his first reaction is, oh, there'll be new kids. I hope I don't get paired up with a new kid, otherwise I have to explain so many different things to them. But I was like, hey, hang on a moment. It's a privilege to be able to actually be in a position so that
Yeah,
you can actually help others, right? So we start to have those kind of conversation around,
that's a really
how
good
to,
moment for influence as well. Like to kind of like develop that influential skills and to further develop that. Hey, like trying to apply what you've learned and like yeah, it's really yeah, you're
yeah.
right. It's a privilege. Yeah,
I mean, yeah, other than that, it's like the golden rules, don't do to others what you don't want to be done to, um, things like that as well. So, definitely trying to take different opportunities to try to get him into that frame of thinking. But it's hard. It's hard.
exactly.
It's not tangible. That's the problem. Like it's
Yeah,
not like he solved a math problem or he read a book that is kind of more tangible. Whereas moral, you can't really measure it. Like how do you
yeah.
know? How do you teach? Like it's hard. And
Exactly. And also, because as again, I don't want to be bashed about this, but as someone who's a bit more exposed, educated, and that type of scenario, we want to try our best, right? We don't want to go to the lazy route of like say, it's always been like this, just do this, right? Like don't object, don't question, like just do what I say, right? Like yeah,
yeah.
like we don't also want to do that, right? Like that's why yeah, that adds up an extra, layer of challenge as parents as well, right? You really have to do your best to like influence those, moral compass, not based off authority, but based off those tangible, things that would really help, our kids to understand things.
Yeah, and it's really hard. Like I'm finding it quite challenging. And what kind of triggered the topic for the day is I've read a book by David Brooks,
Mm.
and the title of the book is How to Know a Person. And I'll say I read a fair bit, and this is one of the better books I've read recently. And it touches on uh, the kind of decline in a lot of kind of social related activities around community, volunteering. The surveys about trust in government has declined severely over the past few decades. So things like that. So we're in a time where there's lots of changes, and so and a big part of that, I think, in Western culture at least, there used to be, that church community. Every Sunday, people go to church. It might be different type of churches, but there is that very strong local
Mhm.
community type of thing. But I do sense, even for my friends who are religious, the younger generation, they don't want to spend Sunday going to church anymore. So just that overall decline in that kind of activities, I think it's creating a bit of a vacuum at the moment. Um, at the same time, like the schools are not really, um, the education system are not really doing too much in that space as well. And I think in Australia, at least, I think the schools are doing a relatively good job. And, they try to encourage and let the kids know what's the right thing, what's the wrong thing. Um, you know, we should be more acceptive to homosexual people. We should understand, there are different type of personalities, different type of personal choice. We need to respect that. So I think that's really good. Um, but even for a lot of parents, I think in Australia, yeah, we were kind of leaving it to school, right? Like, we have our own view of it, but there's not really much of guidance about how do we actually teach the kid the right value, right? It used to be that, there's a lot of really good moral skill that's embedded into the Bible.
Mm.
Like I'm atheist. I'm not saying that everything is necessarily brilliant in the Bible, but there are a lot of guidance through the various stories about what you should and what you shouldn't do. So and now that's kind of been missing. So I'm really trying to come up with a way to kind of encourage Martin and Harry
Yeah, and I
to
think,
yeah
and again, maybe because both of us are probably not coming from an economics background or a social cultural, that type of thing background. That's why, we always like maybe at least for me, my kind of like visibility or like exposure or like awareness is more like this, right? Rather than that. But I think it's a multifactorial thing, Dave, at least in my perspective, right? Like, unlike back then, when I say back then, like historically, early days of human civilization, right? Like it's all about, hey, let's create a tribe leader, and then let's form a culture out of the tribe, and then it's starting from that. Then there's a consolidation of tribes, and there are a lot of conflicts happening to consolidate a tribe, and that forms a country, and then that forms the continents and so on, and then religion comes in, and then it's kind of like also about influence, wherein like you want to influence, based off those certain principles and philosophies as well. And then now we're facing a decline of all of that, right? Like it was, back then the goal was unification, like, but now we're getting to the individualism concept, right? Like we're in like, hey, you're unique, we're all unique, and we are like main characters of our own lives, right? And then you have to figure out on your own. And then that aspect of like being part of a community, being part of this is kind of like a side quest, right? It's more like a side thing rather than like, hey, I'm MJ, what am I? Who am I? What's my purpose in this world? And like, what should I be doing, as I age and stuff like that. Rather than, hey, you're part of this tribe, you're a swordsman, that's your role for the rest of your life, right? And your sons will be a swordsman, and your grandchildren will be a swordsman,
yeah
so on and so forth, right? Yeah, and that's my view, right? Like I think that's another factor in to consider why it's challenging, and like it's too personal and it's too individualized level. Yeah.
yeah yeah that's very true. The yeah life used to be a lot more predictable. At the same time, right, like you said, career-wise, you don't really get that much options, right? You kind of stick with the family or on the farm, and your kids will probably be doing similar things. Um, and and then industrial revolution kind of happened. A lot of the old things were kind of taken apart. Um, you know, we take a lot of things for granted, I think.
Hmm.
But industrial revolution is relatively recent, right? It's only happened for maybe 200 years, whereas the hunter-gathering, the tribal thing has been like
Thousands.
there
Yeah.
for hundreds of thousands of years, and farming has been there for a few thousand years. So evolution-wise, we're probably more adaptive to the old lifestyle than the new. Um, so I think also industrial revolution kind of again accelerated the changes in in the way that we educate, right? Because used to be more apprentices based. If I'm a farmer, then my son will probably be a farmer, and he just need to learn from me about the different things. Whereas now he's got too many. The kids has
Right
so many
option.
different options, because like the jobs need to specialize. It could be a doctor, could be electrician, plumber, whatever. It's like a specialist skill. But I think moving forward,
And
the
even that is changing as well as we go along, right? Like some jobs
yeah,
are becoming obsolete, and the market is changing, and like the education system's not coping up, and yeah, again, that adds up to another layer of I would say complexity or hardship, right?
yeah, definitely. And I think adaptive to change will be a key thing for future generation, like for us to a certain degree as well, but I think even more so for the next generation. Um, and partly because the way that AI, so the CEO of uh is it Entropy, the
Anthropic,
Claude?
yeah.
Yeah,
Anthropic.
at Ontrop. So he's saying, well, from what they can see, the AI system is going to be better than like on par with human PhDs. So meaning it will be better than most things, than most humans, um, maybe in the next few years. So the purely skill knowledge type of education like may not work anymore,
Mm,
right? So if we take those kind of skills away, then what's left? What's there to keep the society in going in a healthy direction at least. Yeah, I think there's going to be some really big challenges
Yeah, that's why.
if we achieve
Yeah,
that, right?
exactly. That's why going to our kids, right? Like one, I would say, immutable thing that I'm very persistent on, with my kids is the concept of, resilience, right?
Yeah.
Like I believe that resilience is something that they need, right? Now more than ever, right?
Mm,
That's why I experience to build up resilience myself, right? You know, through stress, through different challenges in life, failures, and so on. And I think that's something that I really wanna, pass on to my kids, to build up resilience. So I, even as someone like Archie who, trips out, like falling down, I don't just grab him, all right, there you go. I kind of like always encourage him to try again. All right,
yeah.
or all right, fall down, try again, that type of thing, right? So, but at the same time, as parents, we still want to set some guardrails and like making sure, it's not going to a very severe point of view, right? But I think building that resilience is something that you can't just learn by tomorrow. That hey, tomorrow I have resilience, right? It's more on that little hardships becoming bigger and bigger, and you become much more
Yeah.
immune or like much more resilient, right?
Yeah. Well, it's definitely hard, resilient, especially I think it's really hard to kind of keep, because I actually felt maybe there's no way of really teaching it. It's like you just have to kind of encourage the kid and let he or her kind of explore. Um, so um, yeah, like in again, I found out through my friends that there's scout groups used to be a lot more popular. And I think that used to be like a really good place for them to actually learn about resilient because they have to do all these challenges with other kids during in the camps. And the Girls Guide is like a similar version for girls as well. But now again, that's gone,
Yeah,
right? So it's really coming back to the parents. I think that's something that concerns me. That has been concerning me for a fair bit because yeah, it's not tangible. It's not something that you can
yeah,
measure, right? How do you measure resilient? Like how do you know that my kid is
yeah.
resilient until you send him to a
Y- y-
different country or he grow up, go out of the world
Yeah,
and start
or
to
or a specific challenge comes to that person, and then you're not there to support him, right? Like that's resiliency, right? But how
yeah
do you prepare someone for that,
yeah
without actually doing that? Meaning without really putting someone in the fire, right?
yeah yeah. So I mean that's just a really good example about things I think every parent should like start thinking about. And yeah, I hope that there will be more guidance, and but at least hopefully for anyone who's watching this, if you're struggling as well, you're not alone. And
Yeah,
hopefully we can start a conversation with your friends or people around you, and start to kind of
yeah,
build up a bit more community, and rather than focusing too much on test scores and those
yeah.
kind of things, right? So
But in the concept of academics, skills, and stuff like that, there's also one, I would say moral thing that I want to impress on my kids, which is the concept of structured learning and learning to learn. What does that mean? So what that means is
mm,
that you try to put a structure to what you're learning, right? Like, don't just learn. Well, again, this is oversimplification, but like, don't just learn 1 plus 1 equals 2, right? Why are you learning 1 plus 1 equals 2 in the first place? Oh, because when I go out to the supermarket, I need to know that if I add 2 apples, there are not 2 apples in my basket, and I have to pay for 2 apples, right?
yeah.
It's more on that and applying it for a more structured approach, right? Like, what's your end goal? Like, why are you taking engineering? What engineering? Why do you want to take up mining engineering, right? Okay, because I like minerals and I think this is something I really excel onto, and I want to really go deep into that space, right? So that's something I want to also guide, especially, Archie, my youngest, as he goes through that journey at school, and as he gets more in, like aligning interests versus I have to do school and I have to follow a specific career and like so on and so forth. I think it's more around like creating that structure, right? So that you don't just learn everything and go wherever the wind blows, right?
Yeah, 100%. Like, yeah, and I think learning is definitely one of the things that's is learn how to learn. As you say, what works for you as a person, and I think be able to actually, you've learned something. That's also another thing that keeps people happy as well. That continuous learning journey. Continue to experience different things that triggers the brain. Being surrounded with family. I think those are probably like the three things that really help to keep a person happy, other than being healthy and have stable jobs and relatively speaking, kind of thing. So yeah, just want to share it. I think it's a good topic for us to start this on 2025. And yeah, school is about to start. School
Yes.
holiday challenges. It's going to be over for me
Yeah.
very soon. So yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, so much more to discuss. And again, it is a journey, and whatever we're saying here at the moment is who we are at this point in time. So we are also learning as we go along, and perspectives change, and like influence happens, and like real world events happens, and yeah, like but then at the same time, we want to encourage everyone to like keep doing what you're doing in a positive, structured way, right? Like, yeah, you're parents for a reason, and I'm a parent for a reason, and that's really to try our best to give our children a good life, right? At least a safe life that they would enjoy. All right, awesome. All right, so that's it for today. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you soon. Put your comments, like, and subscribe.
Thanks, MJ.
See
Thanks,
you.
everyone.